Leslie Benningfield Randall was just 6 years old when everything was ripped away from her.
My community was beautiful and was filled with happy and successful Black people. Then everything changed. It was like a war. White men with guns came and destroyed my community. We couldn't understand why. What did we do to them?
Mother Randall, now 106 years old, is one of 3 living survivors of the Greenwood Massacre of 1921, and is once again demanding justice after waiting 100 years. Greenwood, Oklahoma was a small, affluent, self-sufficient Black community home to about 10,000 Black residents just outside Tulsa. Greenwood became famous for its social cohesion and economic strength. It was later dubbed Black Wall Street for its sprawling Black businesses. But everything changed on May 31st, 1921, when police accused 19-year-old Greenwood resident of assaulting a white woman and trying to rape her, a narrative historically used to justify many lynchings and riots, the stereotype about a young Black man raping a young white woman. The Tulsa police armed and deputized white residents of Tulsa to take justice into their own hands. The mob killed hundreds of Greenwood's Black residents, looted their homes, churches, and businesses, and reduced the town to ash and rubble. Eyewitness accounts describe as many as 6 airplanes circling around Tulsa, raining bullets and bombs onto the ground.
Those who remained sought reparation almost immediately after the incident. Black survivors of the Greenwood Massacre, 70 in total, filed more than $4 million in insurance claims. All of those claims were denied. When the survivors brought suit against the insurance companies in court, the insurance providers prevailed on a claim that they did not have to pay damages for the riot. The narrative created by the insurance companies and other white leaders was clear. Black Greenwood residents were responsible for what happened, and they did not deserve any justice. This behavior is consistent with mind science research demonstrating that after an injustice takes place, blame is often placed on the victim. We know from social psychologist Melvin Lerner that people attribute negative characteristics to victims to justify the victim's suffering. This psychology of blame framing enables and perpetuates their injustice. Some of the insurance claims lingered on, but as the years and decades passed, white establishment leaders did everything in their power to hide the history of Greenwood. The state would not approve a commission to study the Tulsa Massacre until 1997, 76 years after the massacre. The State Commission's report, released in 2001, settled the history on what happened in Greenwood and recommended the state pay reparations. But justice never came, and reparations were never paid. Survivors who brought lawsuits after the 2001 commission were told they had waited too long and that their case was beyond the statute of limitations. This year, Tulsa's current mayor voices opposition for reparations.
So I think when it comes to payments, the challenge there is what's the source? Where does it come from? Where I run into challenges is if it's coming from a tax that's levied on everybody in Tulsa, when this generation of Tulsans did not carry out a crime. And I don't think that this generation of Tulsans should be financially penalized for something that criminals did 100 years ago.
A new attorney hopes to deliver some justice with his latest lawsuit for reparations.
Yeah, I'm attorney Damaro Solomon-Simmons. Law is my ministry. Justice is my passion. I'm a native of North Tulsa, Oklahoma. I've been obsessed with educating myself and others about Greenwood and the massacre, and also advocating for truth, justice, and reparations for the massacre. The city of Tulsa is responsible, and the city of Tulsa is the same entity that it was 100 years ago. See, that's a spurious argument. That's just something to get you running down a rabbit hole when they say, "Oh, I wasn't alive at that time." It doesn't matter if you were alive. The entity was alive. The county was alive. The city was alive. The chamber was alive. The state was alive. These same entities. So it's no different than any other legal lawsuit. You still have the liability there. Just because there may be a new mayor or a new chief or a new whatever, the liability is there. We can prove the liability. Now then you hit to the statute of limitations from a legal standpoint. which we know is really put in place to protect the powerful, protect those with money, those who have aggrieved. Why should there be a statute of limitation? But they are, and so we have to deal with the realities. The beauty of our lawsuit with the public nuisance here in Oklahoma, there is no statute of limitation for the very reason that public nuisance in Oklahoma is not a tort. It is not actually a tort. It's more quasi-criminal than anything else. It is specifically set up for situations like this. And Oklahoma's public nuisance law is one of 5 in the nation. A win in Tulsa. It's not just about Tulsa. It's not just about those who were impacted by the massacre locally here in Tulsa. It's about the entire Black community. It's about reparations overall. It's about getting a win that we desperately need to be able to move the needle forward, move the dial forward, to be able to show that, hey, we must have racial justice. We must have reparations in this country. However, if we cannot win Tulsa, well, we have 3 living survivors. We have all the documentation we talked about, pictures, video, outstanding legal claims, lawsuits that were filed at the time, people who are still living. If we cannot win reparations for those people, how can we win reparations overall?
You may have been taught that when something is stolen from you, you can go to the courts to be made whole. You can go to the courts to get justice. This wasn't the case for us. The courts in Oklahoma wouldn't hear us. The federal courts said we were too late. We were made to feel that our struggle was unworthy of justice, that we were less valued than whites, that we weren't fully Americans. We were shown that in the United States, not all men were equal under law. We were shown that when Black voices called out for justice, no one cared.
Allowing the last remaining Tulsa survivors to die without any justice would be another damning indictment of the U.S. legal system. A system that used illegitimate narratives to deny justice to Black victims. And then later, after acknowledging the reality of the atrocity, told them that they were too late. But this failure would also indict the American people, those who sat by for 100 years while Black citizens cried out for justice. Who will answer their call?